So the bottom end of our engine is looking really good, but now we've got to clean some pistons. Welcome to Urban Monk TV. So I need to apologize. It's very windy here in Southern California today, and there's going to be a lot of wind background noise. But as we get into these pistons, I just want to start with the old pistons. I've got 3 good ones that were in the engine when I disassembled it. I've got 4 good ones that I ordered off of eBay, and so I've got a lot of sets of rings. And then of course I have a brand new set of rings which I'm going to use. So I've got a lot of old rings to work with, and one of the things I want to do is build myself a little decarboning tool with a set of old rings. And so I'm going to get this old ring off of this piston with the hole in it. I'm going to be kind of rough with this because it just doesn't matter. I'm not going to use it. They make a piston ring pliers, which I of course don't have. I'm just going to finesse it out with these snap ring pliers. Which should be easy enough to do. These are very brittle, and you don't want to be hard on them. But I need one small piece of this to use as a tool, and so I'm going to grab my pliers. And so with 2 sets of pliers, I need a piece I can hold on to, so I'm going to take about here and here. And those are very brittle and they snap off. So there, I just built a ring land. The land is that groove in which the ring rides. A ring land decarboning tool. And with this, I'm going to get inside of these lands and gently scrape out any carbon that is built up in there. Of course, I'm not going to bother with this one because that piston isn't going anywhere, but that's what I'm going to be doing to all of the pistons that are going into my engine. So if I see any carbon built up in there, I can scrape it out with my little homemade tool. So here I've got the number 2 piston out. I've removed the rings. I just finessed them off with these snap ring pliers. They make a better tool. This works. Just be careful with it. You don't want to gouge the side of your pistons as you're getting them off. But number 1 is already out and dipped in this carb cleaner. There's a little plastic tray that you can set parts in and drop them down in there. Number 1 did not have a lot of carbon buildup. Number 2 does, and so I can see as I look into these lands that there's quite a bit of carbon in there. And so I've got some work to do in here trying to get that scraped out. But you can see it comes off with my handy dandy ringland tool. And I'll just keep working at this, being careful that I'm not gouging the metal, but just scraping the carbon out. And the reason we do this is if there's a little bit of carbon that comes between the inside of the land and your ring, so that the ring can't compress completely, then it will be pushed out against your cylinder wall uneven in spots and create excess friction and heat in that area, and you'll just get a poorly worn cylinder wall and poorly seated rings. I don't know if seated is the right word, but the rings and the sides of your cylinders, those cylinder walls, come together in the first 500 miles or so of running the engine, and really come to mate. And so that's what we want to allow to happen, and this carbon in here can get in the way of that happening. So I'm leaving that number 1 in there for probably only 15 minutes or so. This one I may have to soak a little longer, but don't soak things in this chemical for more than a couple hours, and then you can use a wire brush to remove the carbon. You can also just use WD-40 or maybe even carb cleaner or parts cleaner to I don't know if you guys can see that, but that is it's all carbon. The other thing is these oil holes. I want to look through and make sure that they are all clear. There's 9 per side, and these run at an angle. These run straight in, and make sure they're clear. If they're not, you can run a piece of wire in there, like a low E string on a guitar is nice. It's a little bit of abrasive, and because it's got the steel nickel wind around it, and it's a little larger diameter. I've used that to fish out small holes before, and if they're really small, like in carb jets, I'll use the high E string. But that's it on cleaning pistons for now. We'll just keep working. And once I've got things pretty clean on top and in the lands, and I've checked all my holes, I decided not to use a piece of wire to clean those out, but I've got a nice pick that I can fit in there. But they are clear. I can see light through all of them. But I've just got a little bit of carbon buildup here on the sides. Just a little Scotch Brite, I think, works good for this. I think you could use maybe 1,000 grit emery or something like that, but just be gentle and be kind of even in things. Don't be scraping away at one spot for too long. If you're getting down to the metal, then move on. That's all you want to do is remove the carbon. But it's starting to get clean. Two more holes I want to point out, well actually 4 more holes, is right where the connecting rod pins join with the piston. There are some oil holes right here and here and there and there. Make sure that those are clear. That is what gets oil to that surface. So what I'm not capturing in this video is the amount of time that I'm spending with each of these pistons. In between each of these oil holes in the oil ring, which is the 3rd land down from the top, I'm spending quite a bit of time scraping out carbon and just cooked on oil, which is carbon. And maybe 20 minutes or so per piston. And so I've got number 2 soaking in there while I'm working on number 3. And the soaking helps loosen things up a lot, but inside those lands, the only thing that's really going to do it is getting this broken piece of ring out and spending time in here. This is number 2 that just came out of the parts dip. Very heavily carboned. This one's going to take probably a couple of dips and quite a bit of scraping. I may try, I've got some of this carb cleaner in a jar. I may just try that. see if one of these chemicals is more effective than the other. One is certainly more noxious than the other. So if noxious equals efficacy, then this should work better. But is that necessarily the best thing? I don't know. That's number 2 that's been soaking for a little while and kind of rotating back and forth. I soak and I brush and I soak some more and I Scotch Brite and I scrape. And slowly but surely. So having done this for a while using this carburetor cleaner dip and this carb spray, here's what my opinion is. This stuff works. It's extremely noxious, and for those young folks out there who have not started a family yet, I don't know if this is the right stuff to be using. Nasty chemicals. This doesn't smell at all. It takes longer, but I'm actually, it works with the brush, and there's hardly any smell at all to this. And so I'm a fan of this. I'm going to discontinue using this about halfway through, and maybe a little more than that. And I'm just going to stick with this and just take a little bit more time. So this stuff was beginning to melt my rubber glove, and so I had to change the glove because it just, wherever this stuff got on it, it totally melted that glove. There's some tough stuff in there. Yeah, it works, but I think the best thing for this is just spraying out small orifices. And beyond that, you know, take it easy and use a little mechanical energy instead of chemical energy, because the fumes are really bad. The instructions with that parts cleaner dip say that you should rinse with water when you're done, which I did. But now, to get the water off the part, I'm going to use water disbursement 40. That takes care of the water. And so, as they're so fond of saying at the bingo parlor, before and after. So that's going to be a wrap for this episode. We've got 4 clean pistons. One other thing I wanted to note, when I picked up one of the pistons from the set of 4 that I bought off eBay, it felt heavier to me. And because that didn't come from the set that was in this engine, I just wanted to be extremely sure that, you know, these, what if there's a different series of, you know, the E series and the C series, perhaps the pistons have a different weight to them and I wouldn't want it out of balance. So I put them on a small little postal scale that I have that goes down to hundredths of a gram, and they're all within, you know, a couple hundredths of a gram of each other. My mistake was that I still had the connecting rod pin in there, so that was the extra weight that I was feeling. When I pulled it out, they all matched. So seems that you can just buy some other GS550 pistons and they'll match up. So really happy to have these cleaned up. Next thing we're going to be doing is honing the cylinder, so stay tuned for that episode. And then we'll get this all cleaned up and painted, and we'll start working our way up the top end. Thanks for watching. If you like these videos, remember to subscribe and click like. Take care.